Hey, how you doing? It's your boy Brogi Naric back again with another review. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about Netflix's new series, Jupiter's Legacy Volume 1. This is going to be a non-spoiler, no, this is going to be a spoiler review, but I'm going to start off with non-spoilers in the beginning. If you just want straight spoilers, you can click to the time code in the description. And before I get into this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for doing so. So, Jupiter's Legacy dropped not too long ago, probably like last week. And I remember, well, first of all, Jupiter's Legacy is a Netflix series that's based on a comic book, an Image comic book series that was created by Mark Millar and drawn by Frank Whiteley. And the series was developed by Stephen S. DeKnight, who was one of the producers on Smallville. Now, once I figured that out, that explained a lot of reasons why this show was kind of at the level that it was, because the series dropped and it's been kind of met with a lot of negative press. People are not really feeling it, and it's understandable because, you know, the superhero TV show genre has been on a high. You know, you had WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Invincible, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it was a big high, and then this comes in, and it's kind of right at the middle. But the series is, like I said, based on this comic book by Mark Millar, and I forgot that this was happening because a couple years ago, Mark Millar signed this deal with Netflix for his cinematic universe to make various movies and projects, and this is the first one that they've done, which was a smart idea on his part because other properties he's worked on he's created would be Superman Red Son, which became an animated movie. He wrote Civil War, which became loosely based as Captain America Civil War. He helped create The Ultimates, which, if that book did not exist, the MCU would not be the way that it is now. And three other properties would be Wanted, and of course, Kick-Ass and The Kingsman. So I get he's the type of writer who makes books. Basically, his books are like really good pitches to be turned into either a movie or a TV show. Mark Millar is a really good writer, but sometimes the execution is not the greatest. And that's kind of how I feel about this show, where this series, Jupiter's Legacy, has a really good concept. It focuses on these two superpowered siblings who struggle to live up to the legacy of their famous superhero parents, while their father struggles to deal with the social changes of modern day America. And it's an interesting concept, to have what if Superman was an old man who had two kids that also had superpowers, but they're like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, like they're just living off their parents' fame and kind of just being trashy and not living up to the best example. And that's initially what the book was kind of built on, and also a lot of political stuff as well. Haven't read the book, but I was familiar with it. I've seen the images of the covers. So when it was announced, the trailer had dropped, I was like, oh, I forgot about this. And when I saw the trailer, I'm not going to lie, I was not that impressed by seeing what it showed. The cast, I didn't know anyone in the cast besides the lead, who is Josh Duhamel. He plays the Utopian, aka Sheldon Sampson. I like Josh Duhamel, but I don't think he's the strongest or the greatest actor. He does okay in this show, but I was kind of like, if Josh Duhamel is the biggest name he got, that's not looking too great for me. But I will say, after watching the series, I was pleasantly surprised at a lot of things. Some of the cons would be, like I said, the concept. There's a couple of characters in this show and actors that I wasn't familiar with that I thought were really good. The action is really good. It's definitely a Netflix show, so they can be a little more violent. Most of Mark Millar's stuff is violent anyway, especially like in his own Miller World stuff. So it has a certain brutality at times. It's funny, awesome funny stuff in this. And the biggest thing, the budget and the special effects are really good. At times, it's really good. At times, I would say the costumes are cool. I like the costume designs. certain special effects are good and certain practical effects are good. But then you get into some of the bad stuff where some of the practical effects, specifically certain wigs and old people makeup, is not good. Like, I would say 90% of it is not good, except for like it only works with one character, and I'll get to that more in the spoilers. Another problem is some of the characters are annoying. Specifically, your lead, the Utopian, he's pretty annoying. Like, he was kind of interesting at the beginning, but as the show goes on, I'm like, you kind of suck. Another character who's another kind of lead is Chloe, who is the Utopian's daughter. She's kind of annoying, but she's supposed to be annoying on purpose. She's played by Elena Camporis. Never seen her before. She does surprisingly look like she walked out of the comic, because Frank Quitely has this distinctive style where he draws most of his women very thin, big heads with big eyes. She fits that. So I was surprised they found someone to really somehow mimic his art style. And also another character, Brainwave, played by Ben Daniels. He looks like he walked right out of the comic too. So certain moments, it does look like the page is brought to life, and I admire that. But other problems I will say that I had with the show, just quickly, is some of the acting is not the greatest. This is not Oscar, like I said, some of the other hero shows, the acting has been on point. The acting is sort of hit and miss, varying levels of, because there's a lot of young actors in this, and there's also some seasoned actors in this, and it's like the acting's not the strongest. Certain story elements are predictable, like very predictable. There's a lot of surface level debates about right and wrong and shades of gray and all. Like, that's like the main crux of the story. It's like, shouldn't we be doing this? We should do it this way, but times have changed. We need to adapt, but no, we should stay to this moral high ground and all. It's not that deep. You could make some comparisons to, this is sort of like what Snyder was trying to do with Man of Steel. It's not as good. I don't care for either versions, but it's kind of like that, but it's even less. At least with Snyder, he makes he makes a strong decision in how he views certain things, as opposed to the show where they straddle the fence. Like, it doesn't really go either way. It doesn't try to sway you either way. It's just very surface level, which is whatever. And another thing, if you have problems with political issues being in your entertainment, you're not gonna like it. It doesn't go overboard, but it is there. And the simplest way to describe this show is, this is what if you took The Boys and crossed it with like The Flash on the CW, or you took The Boys and crossed it with Supergirl. That's kind of how it is, because it's got that edge to it, but it doesn't have that sharp satire like The Boys. But then it's also a little lighter at times, and you focus on young people and their issues and certain relationships and family stuff and all that. So it definitely strides in between of a CW show and The Boys. And like I said, with the guy working on Smallville, once I realized that, it's like, oh, this does feel like Smallville, but it's rated R. It's like rated R Smallville. So it's like, okay, interesting. But those are like the simplest thing. It's a fine show. It's not the worst superhero show ever, and it's not the greatest, but it's fine. I would like to, if they get a second season, I would like for them to, work out the kinks, because there's certain things, because the book, there's more stuff that they can build up to, because there's a big thing that happens in the book that they didn't do. And I saw some people debating like, oh, they should have did that thing, but they left it out to build to the next season. They want to give you something for the next season. And I don't really know how the story goes, but, it was fine. Hopefully the next season can work out the kinks. So that being said, for my grade, I would give it like a C+, a 6 out of 10. This is slightly above average. Check it out when you got the chance. It's 8 episodes. Not something you necessarily need to rush to see, but if you want to check it out, it's worth checking out, I would say. But don't expect to have your mind blown. Set your expectations to medium. So with that being said, I'm now going to get into spoilers, so stay tuned. But one of the things I will admit I forgot to mention, and Mark Millar, his work is unique. He has a unique style, and like I said, the execute, like he comes up with a good concept, but the execution isn't always the greatest. This show, sadly, didn't have Matthew Vaughn, because Matthew Vaughn is the one person I've seen who can consistently take Mark Millar's work and elevate it and make it more palpable and mainstream. He did it with Kick-Ass, and he's done it with the two Kingsman movies. Much better with the first one than the second one, and he's going to do a Kingsman prequel. But he takes his concept, takes out some of the sillier stuff and some of the not so stuff that's not really going to work that well for more mainstream audiences, changes it but elevates it, makes it a little more sophisticated. This show needed Matthew Vaughn. It really did, and I think it would have hit way better. The costumes. I like the costumes. I know some people are probably going to shit on the costumes. I like the majority of the costumes. They were definitely going. Okay, the reason I like the costumes is because if you look at the artwork that it's based on, they did a really good job translating Frank Quitely's artwork into a more live action aspect. And I like when superhero projects aren't afraid to use color and make superhero costumes look like goofy, but like legit at the same time. And I can tell that they were definitely inspired by what, I don't know the designer, but whoever Zack Snyder works with when he did Watchmen and his Snyderverse movies, they were definitely mimicking that style, but not quite at that budget, but they still look really good. And then there were other suits that didn't look as good, but they still look like decent cosplay-ish superhero suits. Like I said, it's like a little bit of CW style as well. But for me, it worked. And like I said, the special effects for the most part were really good. Way more than I was expecting, especially at the end of the first episode, which I've gone back and rewatched this show, and I have to say, that fight at the end of the first episode with the Union versus Black Star, who was played by Tyler Mane, who was a wrestler, but he was also Sabretooth in the first X-Men movie. He was great. Black Star was awesome. I wish he was in the show more, because he brought a certain liveliness and urgency and levity. But that fight with the team, those heroes was fighting him, that fight went on way longer than I expected. The budget was way better than I expected. He looked like freaking Mongo versus the Justice League. It was cool. I liked that fight a lot. And it's kind of crazy that that's the main thing that stuck with me throughout this show, in terms of if I'm like, you gotta see it, it's like, oh, this is this awesome moment. Sadly, that's like the first episode, and then like the little aftermath right after in the second episode. That's the highlight. And there's 8 episodes, and the highlight is at the end of the first episode. That's the biggest highlight. And I'm like, that's not great, but it was cool. I really enjoyed that fight, and I love his design. The prosthetic effects were really good, and I love he had the reading glasses and all that. That shit was hilarious, and I love that he calls out like, hey, Brandon, when Brandon decides to save everyone, and he jumps up and kills what he thinks is Black Star, because Black Star was beating everyone's ass and he was about to kill everyone. And of course you find out that it was not him, it was some sort of doppelganger, which it's kind of crazy they had that fight and no one checked with the security, like, no, that's not Black Star, he's in the shower right now. But anyway, I like how he calls that out. He's like, oh, so it's cool when your son kills, but he doesn't get arrested, but when I kill, it's a problem. Stuff like that. And then there's the whole argument of like, well, 78% of America thought he did the right thing by killing this guy, and Sheldon is pissed, the Utopian is pissed. And I like the Utopian at the beginning, because he's very much like he's essentially Superman, like your more old school traditional Superman, where he's like, we have a set of rules, we believe in truth, justice, and the American way, we don't get in politics, we don't fucking kill people, that's how we do our job. And then everyone else is kind of like, that sounds good, but like, it's 2021. Shit's a little more hectic than that. We should probably update this old ass rules. And he's like, no, the rules are changing. You need to change. I don't need to change. And that's the whole dynamic with him and Chloe, where Chloe's like, oh, you believe in your own bullshit, and you can't no one can tell you otherwise. And that's kind of the thing with Brandon. Because from what I heard, Brandon is actually just like Chloe in the book, but they're both wild childs, as opposed to the show where Chloe's the wild child and Brandon's the one who's trying to live in his father's shadow, but he's not quite getting there and he's getting frustrated, kind of going down a Anakin Kylo Ren path, where she didn't go as overboard as I thought, because that was one of the things that is going to happen later. But Brandon, aka Paragon, was played by Andrew Horton. Looking at his IMDb, this is like the biggest project he's been in so far. So he's a young actor. He was not good. I did not care for him. I didn't believe him in most of his moments where he had to be, like the moments where he had to stand up to be like, I can truly be the next big hero. I kind of agree with his dad. I'm like, you're not ready, kid. You're really not. He was not convincing me in any of those things. But then again, he wasn't convincing me that he would be a good villain either. He was just kind of there. He didn't really do much for me. But now Chloe, played by, like I said, Elena, she was good. She grew on me. I did not like her at the beginning, but like knowing what she's supposed to be, and later on when she starts to turn around, or towards the end when she was willing to work with Hutch, I started to like her more. But she is a fucking mess. That episode when they show a day in her life where she's just hanging out with that guy at the club and she bangs this guy and then she finds out that he was just using her to try to put in a good word with the union. And I like how she reacts by just punching him through the wall. That shit was, I like that. That was fun. And then of course when she gets hit by the truck and she bumps into, what's his name, Hutch and his gang. Like I said, the budget, they use the action sparingly, but most of the time when they do it, it works. Actually, you know what? Another thing I forgot to mention in the cons of this show, I definitely just remembered, I forgot to mention it. One of the biggest cons, the fucking flashbacks. When I first watched this, I thought the flashbacks weren't that bad, but like going back and rewatching it just a little bit, it's like, yeah, these flashbacks kind of drag a little. They drag a lot, and it's sort of breakneck speed. They just happen and they go on for a while and then it's back to the present day and then it's just bam, another flashback. It's not the best. They could have handled that better. That's that moment where I think, was it the first episode when the dad walks off the building? This is one of my problems with Josh Duhamel in this show. He's not the strongest actor. There's some moments where he's supposed to be dramatic, and it's these weird facial expressions that he makes that are built for comedy. Like, especially that reaction when the dad walks off the building, and he's like, no, and then he just runs away. It was just like, what? Could you not have a better take? It looked almost like something out of a comedy. There was some moments when he's like having the weird visions, and his reactions were crazy. I did like the Kurtwood Smith cameo though, when he was the guy at the windmill. That was awesome. That was creepy. Kurtwood Smith is great. He's still got it. Oh man, that was a great moment. I loved that. But yeah, those flashbacks were a bit much. But another one of my favorite characters, who is my favorite character besides Black Star, is Brainwave, aka Waltz, played by Ben Daniels. He was awesome. When I said there was the old people makeup didn't look good, his was the only one that looked good enough to me. He really worked with his makeup. To others, it seemed like the makeup might have been a bit of a hindrance. Like the guy that played Fitz with that bad wig and that weird scar. You don't even look that old. Like, what are we doing here? Grace she had a wig. That's the old makeup she had, was she wore a wig. But him, he had the makeup, he had the beard. Him and Chloe looked like they walked out of the page. Like, it doesn't look real, but it looks like a artistic design brought to life. And it worked for me. He worked with the makeup. He was cool, but that's one of the predictable things. Like, you kind of pick it up early on. It's like, oh, he's the jealous brother who's jealous. He's the older brother who's jealous of the younger brother because everyone likes the younger brother more than him. Everyone listens to him, even though he's the smart one. His brother's the cool jock that everyone listens to, and he tends to be right most of the time. But you see it coming, and then there's a bit later on when they're doing the flashback of them on the island, where they pretty much ham-fistedly tells you, he's like, I'm jealous of you. Eventually I will turn on you. And of course that's what we get. And I wish it could have been handled a little better. What's his name? George Hutchins, aka Sky Fox, played by Matt Latner. Oh, Lanter. He was cool. I was not familiar with him until I looked him up, and apparently this guy was the voice of Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars. He's been Anakin for the past like 15 fucking years. He was cool. I like him. He had a cool look too. It's like Ben Daniels looks like a young Ralph Fiennes, and Matt Latner looks like a young Billy Zane. So they definitely kind of look like people from the 30s era. They did well in their roles. And he's, this young, cocky, rich boy. He's kind of the Batman of the team. He's the closest thing to Batman. I mean, he has powers, but he's like super smart. And he can make gadgets and shit. And, he's the one who is being framed to be the one who's behind what's ever going on with the Black Star clone. Which he is, he's considered to be the greatest supervillain. Which he does go off the deep end because they mentioned he tried to kill the president. I think it was Nixon. I remember looking this up. I think it was either Nixon. I think it was after Watergate. He was like, you know what, fuck this. Because I know he kind of goes. I wouldn't say he goes off the deep end, but basically because he was the one who was the most like, hey, this code shit is not working or it's bullshit, and we should actually do more to help people. And I believe he was like the one who was like, okay, there's all this civil rights shit going on, plus there's like Vietnam War going on, and all this Hague Trials communism shit going on. I think I'm going to use my powers and actually do something about it. And then he kind of went off. They viewed him as going more off on the deep end because he was willing to stand up against certain oppressions, as opposed to the others who were kind of like, hey, we don't get involved in that stuff. So then he does, like I said, go off the deep end when he tries to kill the president or whatever. And I can't wait to see more of that in the next season potentially, how that plays out. But also what was his name? Hutch played by Ian Quaylen. He's a young actor. This is one of the bigger things he's been in. He was cool. I liked him. He was Sky Fox's son. He has no powers, but he has the power rod thing that he can say something, or he'll have it and he'll be like, hey, Idaho, and it'll teleport him to Idaho, or he'll hold it and he'll say loft and it'll teleport back to his home. And he can also the voice command where it only reacts to him type shit. Like it was a good effect, and he did good in most of his action sequences. And I love the relationship between him and Chloe because they were childhood friends but hadn't seen each other in a while. And once he accidentally crashes into her and she kicks the shit out of his team, he saves her after she took some drugs that he had to steal, and she's just coked out on these like super drugs. And he saves her because she starts she ODs, but he gets to the hospital, and then they're just banging. That's just a whole subplot. But it's like, yeah, we're just banging. That's all we're doing. All this other shit's going on. We're just back here banging. But he's like trying to build some device to contact his dad. I don't know if it's like a device to open another dimension or some shit. I don't know where his dad is. They don't really explain it. But like I said, second season, maybe we'll get more. Grace was cool. Lady Liberty, the Utopian's wife, played by Leslie Bibb. She was cool. I liked her. Especially that episode where she, the ghost girl got killed, and she's like, yeah, I beat the shit out of that criminal. He's not dead, but my partner is. What do you think about that, Shell? Your fucking code is broken, Shell. And Shell's like, it's not broken. You're broken. I know what I'm doing. It's like, all right. It's like he got annoying. That was episode 5 when he's doing the therapy session. And I like the little reveal that was like his Lex Luthor, basically. I'm like, that's kind of cool. That's cool. And he's like, hey, you're the only person who understands me, And he's like, yeah, really wish I could fucking kill you right now, but I'm locked up. That was an interesting dynamic. And the bit at the end, what's her name? The character Raiko. She was cool. I wish they hadn't killed her. I would have liked to see more of Raiko. I don't know if she was in the book more. I was a little surprised that was Walt's daughter. Didn't see that coming. She was played by Anna Akana. Not familiar with her, but she looked dope. That outfit was cool. That opening sequence with her, where we just cut to Kill Bill and she's a ninja. It's like no. It's like they took Kill Bill and that scene from Endgame where Ronin Hawkeye is fighting those guys, those Japanese guys. It was like that. Like you took the Crazy 88 and that sequence, meshed it together. There's your scene, and it was cool when she was fighting those guys, and then she's mentally talking with her dad and all of that. And it gets a little confusing a bit towards the end when you're in the mind, and Walt's trapped in the clone's mind, and he's trying to find George, and George's there, and they have their little fight, and you find out that it was all a ruse. Because it's like, how much of that was a ruse? But it's because it's like, why is he dragging it out? But of course, Grace hops in, so I guess he was just covering his tracks just in case someone would hop in. Grace did. George uses the stasis gun to keep her there, and then they're continuing to fight, and he's giving them all this. Did he make all of that up, or is it somehow he's connecting to the actual George? It's a little confusing, but I'm assuming Walt made it all up just in case he would have a clear cover story for when. And I think it was also because he was once Raiko was there, because I like the idea that he didn't want Raiko there, but because Grace intervened, trying to do the right thing, she ends up inadvertently getting this girl killed. And also, it's kind of shitty that Shell was like, I didn't even want to do this in the first place, but I listened to you, and now my brother might die type of, like, well, Shell's an asshole. He really is. I liked him less and less as the show went on. I like the bit where they're in the prison and Black Star's holding Brandon hostage, and he's like, hey, Utopian, you're either going to kill me or you're going to kill your son. Which one is it? And Utopian's kind of stalling there for a while, and Black Star's like, oh shit, I guess he's going to let me kill you. And like Shell was about to hit him with the laser beams, but then the chick came in and distracted him. He got saved by the bell. And there's dissension, there's tension there between him and Paragon. And I thought, Brandon was actually going to kill him, but he doesn't. So I guess they're waiting for that big final push for the next season where he goes full bad. And there was that action sequence with Hutch when he goes to China and he's in the room with the no oxygen, so he can't talk. So he's got to quickly try to get the device, and then the guards come in and they start beating the shit out of him, and he's, Chloe comes in and saves his ass. That was cool. I liked that moment. And her throwing the guys around and punching them through the walls and shit. It was cool. Like I said, when they did the superhero stuff, they linked it to it, and it was good. That's another thing I did like about this show is like the superheroes in this show are superheroes. There's none of that sort of, there's this government conspiracy and there's only like a few superheroes but no supervillains. So there's superheroes and there are superpowered villains. There's also aliens. There's also like any crazy thing you can think of a superhero would deal with. It does exist in this world, and I like that. It's not like sometimes it's like, it's real. It's a real grounded superhero thing. There's not really that much weird stuff going on. But it's like in this one, no, there's some crazy shit going on. Like I said, more like a CW show. And I appreciate that. I like when superhero shows embrace the wackiness of comic books. Another positive about the show. And, Walt being revealed to be the bad guy, you saw it coming. Like I said, that episode when they're on the island, he all but basically gives a speech where he's like, I hate you because you caused our dad to die. That stuff was funny, though. The ghost dad with the cracked head, that actor was pretty fun. Like I said, this show has a weird vibe of like, it's a little edgy, but it's also cheesy at the same time. It struck a good balance. Maybe if they can cut out some of the more of the lulls, it would work better. But I liked it. Like I said, I did enjoy it. I didn't completely hate it. It's worth checking out. Go check it out on Netflix. But let me know what you thought about the series in the comments. Is it that bad? Let me know. Am I tripping? Because I thought it was fine. Like I said, I would like to see a second season. That's all I got to say for this. And thanks for watching. Peace.